Reed, thanks a lot. We really appreciate DoSpace for allowing us this opportunity. And thank you again for the opportunity. Just a couple real quick things before we get kicked off. Today we're going to offer a lot of our insights of what we're seeing for opportunities and what might be available for small business. Just a reminder, the environment's changing pretty much every hour. We've been in touch with a lot of the providers, SBA, banks, and so forth, and they are still sorting things out. So we're going to try to give you the best information we can. Keep in mind that may change over time. Second thing I do want to do is make sure NEF, in a collaboration of several others through what's called the EEC, is providing a seminar or webinar on Wednesday. The Department of Labor's lawyer is going to be online. That's from 11:30 to 12:15. That is the website, and the call-in information is available on NEF's website, the Chamber of Reach's website, the EEC Facebook page, Catholic Charities website, NBDC's website. So make sure you check that out. Friday, we're going to have one of our favorite trainers present on getting your books in order during this time. Jacob Malosh is with ARC Financial, and I think he's one of the best accountants we'll find in the state. He brings real life information to small businesses, and his heart is to make sure every small business is good. Next Monday, we have in that same series, all these are 11:30 to 12:15. Core Bank will be talking to us from a bank perspective during a risk profile. So those are 3 additional webinars to keep in track. And then next week, this one we'll be back at DoSpace from 4 to 5, both next week and a week from Monday, talking about how do I get ready for the digital world. So if you've got questions, you want to learn how to become more effective, we're doing a collaboration with Startup Collaborative, and they will be doing a training guiding us through how to become more savvy getting online. So those are some future announcements. As we go from there, I have BC Clark, who works with me, a colleague of mine at the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. She does client training and client development. She's the director of all of our outreach programs to ensure that we're getting really good information and training to our small businesses across the state. And I'd like to really welcome Mike Story. Mike Story's on our board for about the last year and a half. He is at Lamson, Dugan, and Murray. And Mike, if you don't mind, we're going to let you take over. Let us know what you're seeing from your side, and then we will open up to questions, and we are happy to take any questions that people have. Just keep them coming and rolling in the chat box.
Thanks, Jim. So I work at Lamson, Dugan, and Murray here in Omaha. We are located in Regency. We have about 45 attorneys, and we're experiencing the same problems everyone else is as a small business with less than 100 employees. Our law firm is experiencing a lot of the same issues with how to handle employment issues, how to handle all the regulations and rules regarding social distancing, and just generally our business, like everyone else's business, is being harmed by the lack of social interaction and just a general slowing of everything that's available. So what we have done at the law firm that I think is kind of a helpful resource to everyone is we have created what we call the COVID-19 Resource Center. So as part of this law firm, I focus primarily on litigation, which means I'm handling lawsuits on behalf of companies, and certainly there's going to be a lot of litigation arising out of this in the future. That would include all of your issues with vendors, suppliers, insurance for business interruption. There's a lot of issues that will be likely to come up in the next now and in the future months. We're already experiencing some clients calling us about people counseling leases and asking questions about whether or not they can get out of their lease or whether or not their tenants can get out of those leases. And so we're starting to experience problems like that. In addition, the firm, we have an employment practice, we have a business consulting practice, we have a lot of great attorneys here that focus exclusively on helping small businesses with a variety of issues, including issues arriving out of COVID-19. So one of the things that we have done as a law firm, and I can send a link, hopefully I can figure that out in the chat or some other way, is we created a COVID-19 resource center. So if you go to our website, and if you're on your computers, it might be helpful to do that now. It's ldmlaw.com, and then you'll see our /COVID-19 resource center. If you go to our website, you'll be able to find that. And I might be able to copy and paste that into our chat here. What we have tried to do, what we have done, is we have created a variety of resource links for you. So this can be your kind of maybe one of your first stops to answer all kinds of questions from the construction industry to employment, to estate planning, healthcare, legislative. We're kind of putting everything together in one area, and we're going to try to update that on a daily basis and certainly a weekly basis to help answer your questions. If you scroll to the bottom of that website, you'll see we've also created helpful links to state resources and then national and global resources, from everything from just updating you on what's happening to the links to the Small Business Administration, to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, to kind of give you and your small business all of the tools you can have or you need in one source. And part of that is, as Jim mentioned, is the CARES Act and the federal legislation and state legislation on unemployment benefits and a variety of other small business loans that are now going to be available to help fill in the gaps between where your business is now and where you might need to be in 3 months. And so those loans, that program's still developing, and you're going to need some assistance in that. NEF can certainly help you with that. They're keeping on top of that. And if to the extent that a lawyer needs help, you need help from a lawyer, we can certainly do that as well. But those loans can help you pay from everything from payroll to just keeping the lights on. And those, you may need a lot of those questions, if you will, are answered on our website and other available websites to kind of help you with that application process, and to see, one, if you qualify, and two, what it can actually provide for you as terms of immediate relief. There's also on the website is a lot of employment links. So if you have employees, that's probably, at least from what I've heard and what we are dealing with at the law firm, is there's a lot of concerns on what you do with your employees and make sure that they're taken care of. And so you can provide resources to them, whether that is, unfortunately, if you have to lay off someone or furlough someone, those links can help you give some guidance on that, and what is legal and what is not legal in light of COVID-19. It also provides some explanations for when you can use the variety of acts that have been passed by Congress and by the state to help you or to require you under the FMLA or other rules to protect your employees going forward. And so those employment links are also available on the website.
Mike, I know I've had some conversations. Do we know how much do we know? A lot of our clients are going to be sole proprietors, and obviously, if they have to be shut down, some of our clients are contractors. My understanding is the CARES Act has some provisions for supporting unemployment for both sectors. What can you tell us is known today? And
I've spent a little bit, not a ton of time, I will admit that. So a lot of these resources will be available online. And just a quick plug, I mean, a lot of this is, we have a gentleman in our office named Eric Tiratelli, who's an employment lawyer who really focuses on this. And so I tried to get up to date as much as I could today, but with him, and unfortunately he's on another call helping some of our clients on this issue. But my understanding is that there are unique protections for sole proprietors. What I've learned is, in prior years, gig workers, if you will, people who are self-employed, people who work side jobs don't qualify necessarily for unemployment. And so there are new exceptions for that. So if you're a sole proprietor and you're losing all of your income, there is an opportunity, I believe, for you to get unemployment if you've lost all of your income, or a substantial amount of your income, or maybe just some of your income, that will help supplement that. And so we've all heard the articles and read some of the news about the availability of unemployment and the expansion of that. And for instance, I was just reading, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but Ricketts also gave a conference today, just moments ago, expanding some of the state's available resources and explaining how those may be available. So those certainly are available. It seems like those are available, and that's something that our website hopefully will address, if not now, but hopefully shortly in the future, as well as other resources online. What we have found is that is helpful is that the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, the Nebraska website, government websites, they all have now, if you look for them, they have COVID-19 resources available to answer those questions. And to the extent that we can help, we certainly would, and like to offer services or answer specific questions if any of those may arise.
Okay, super. And do we know, I know this is another one that I've heard is there's some delays. Do we know how long it's going to take to get some of these provisions? I know a lot of people think, oh, it'll happen yesterday, but yesterday doesn't seem to have happened. Do we have any timeline or estimates?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think it's rapidly deploying, but the last I had heard is the goal was checks, for instance, on the individual side, the checks would be coming out in 2 weeks. And so I think there's a lot of people trying to get these loans, but I don't know that we have a definitive time period of when those checks will come out, unfortunately.
Okay, super. And I think that's the thing I want everybody to take away is it's a lot of things are unfolding quickly. So we will keep watching things. And again, we do have a webinar Wednesday at 11:30 that we'll have the Department of Labor's lawyer on, and she may have more information that's more relevant by that point as well. Mike, how much have you been able to dig into SBA? I know there's several different loans out there. There's the economic injury development loan, or I think is what it's called, and then there's a couple other SBA loans that are payroll protection and so forth. Could you give us a perspective on those different loans and so forth?
Yeah, so the SBA has a website. Obviously, I hope everyone would go first there. The SBA website, which is just sba.gov, discusses a lot of this lending progress or these new loans. If you go to their website, and you can find on their website at least some guides, initial guides. Now, some of those are not as helpful. I don't think that website is up to date as to kind of incorporate everything that's passing from Congress. And so, to be honest, the easiest way to do this is Google searching is going to be helpful in a lot of ways. I believe if you go to our website, we have created we have some discussion of the SBA loans, and we have Eric Taylor and others working on that to help with the SBA loan program. But that's something we hope to be coming out with in the next couple of days in order to help people understand the loan process. Okay.
BC, and you've also been pretty active keeping up with SBA. Do you have anything else to add?
Yes. So what I do know is that as far as the SBA loan, right now they're asking everyone to just print off the application and apply, and make sure you send in all the documents that they're requiring. Now, there was some questions, and I've had probably about 6 people that have applied, and it went really smooth for them. They did need to have if they had a credit history, they needed to just send that, but no taxes. They're not requiring you to send in any tax information, and they were not requiring you to give any credit history or credit score or anything. So that was available as well. Now, a couple things, Jim, I think on what we did here is that someone had asked if they could use the loan to pay for their salary. Well, as a business owner, no, you can't. They said they would not approve a loan for you to get your salary paid. So, but for your employees, for rent, for utilities, the mortgage of your building, all of that can go into that application. And I've seen the application is not terribly Well, you know, it's the government, so there are some bumps and grinds, but they really are easy to get through. So if you just follow the instructions, go through it. If you have questions, you can call any of us and we can walk you through that application process.
Right. And I think one thing that's really important that we talk about too, there's several different things coming out through the SBA. The ones we've learned the most about, to be honest, is the economic injury disaster loans. And that's because that was out before Congress passed the bill on Friday afternoon. So I think SBA is actually going to ask the banks to help with some other relief, some of the Paycheck Protection Program, for example. So there are two buckets here. The economic injury disaster loan, that's a loan that they'll provide funding for payroll, for working capital, for rent, and so forth, in up to 30 years based on your capacity to repay. And the interest rate for businesses is 3.75%.
Right.
Just be aware it is a loan, and the government will take this particular product as a loan. So you want to just make sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one. And yeah, BC, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was just going to say that the loan is, you don't have to pay on it for, if you got it April 1st, your first payment would not be due until March of 2021.
Right, 21. There's 11-month grace period.
Right. The interest rate on it was 3.75%. And I did find out that a lot of, I think at first when people start entering that application, they weren't giving all of the information. So any information that's left out, they will reject it. Yep. And usually somebody may or may not call you to let you know that. So if you don't get it over time, you can kind of check and see if it has, but if it's rejected, they'll send you an email from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, and then you do have certain rights. I know the Nebraska Business Development Center can be contacted if you're rejected to look at the application to see if you did miss something, how it could be. I do have a question related to this loan too. They're asking for last year's taxes or a business profit loss summary. Yes, they are asking for taxes, but if you don't have 2019,
right,
that's okay. What you need though, what they're doing is basing their loan decision on what you reported as your payroll, as your rent, as your debt service.
Right.
You can't use this loan to pay off a loan, but you can use this loan to pay next month's loan payment. So, yeah. You know, if you have 15 years on your mortgage, you can't use it for that, but you can make May and June's payments with this loan. So hopefully that helps everybody too.
And Jim, when we're ready to talk about the stimulus package for small business, let me know so we can give them that information as well.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions? We won't be, let's see, with the disaster loans, do your employees have to be working? Shyla, I believe, no, that's not, I don't think that's a condition of the EIDL. It is more of a condition of the some of the other stimulus.
Right.
And there are exceptions, is my understanding. And again, we're only 3 days since the legislation has been approved. So banks and SBA itself is still sorting out what is legitimate, what makes sense, what can we do. So just keep that in mind.
And you can apply for both, Jim. You might not know that they can not only apply for the SBA, but also for the small business loan through the stimulus package as well.
Okay, and then we had a question from Bridget about self-employed and contractors. Can they apply for unemployment? Yes, I believe so, but
yes,
that's different than the past. So that's
right.
Why we're all learning, how does this work? It's great news for the contractors. So, and I had a good friend call earlier today saying, hey, how do I help the person that is a contractor in our building do this? So,
and I see there's a question, Jim, where did you apply for both loans? So you can talk about the SBA, and I'm gonna talk about the stimulus in just a second.
Yeah, so the SBA, Mike already put it up there. Start with the SBA.gov page, and Mike, if you could just repost that, or maybe it was the moderator that posted that. That's where you start. Like BC said, it was supposed to be all online, and then guess what? The site crashed for the SBA. So right now they're saying to do it all by paper. So I think there's 5 or 6 key pieces of paper. If you have other information that say you lost some contracts, make sure you include that in your package, because that's proof to the SBA that you were damaged. So that's on the SBA. Any other questions on the SBA? Because the stimulus will talk more about the barbers and so forth.
The barbers and beauty shops can apply for unemployment as well. They're business owners, so any of them can apply but they can apply for the SBA loan as well.
Yeah.
That's what they told us. Everybody should apply, whether you think you'll get it or not. Just go ahead and apply for it. So don't miss any of the opportunities that you have. Go ahead and do that. And so I think we answered Bridget's problem. So let's talk a little bit. We know that the stimulus package was passed a few days ago. And so let's talk about who's eligible for this small business loan. Now, from what I understand, it's been $349 billion that they put in reserve for small businesses. The loans are federally guaranteed. So that means that there's no interest on the loan and it's tax-free. All the loan payments are deferred for 1 year, as I stated earlier. So if you got it April 1st, it wouldn't be due, the first payment wouldn't be due until March of 2021. So any business with less than 500 employees is eligible for the loan. And all the states now and all the territories are all eligible. So that means self-employed individuals, independent contractors, and sole proprietors are also eligible for this stimulus loan as a small business. Now, priority will be given to those businesses that are underserved and in rural markets, including veterans, members of the military community, women, socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, and businesses that are less than 2 years old. So you want to look at all of the information. Now, there are, from what we're understanding, there is going to be more than 1,000 lending agencies that will be participating in the program, and that's across the whole states, all the nations, according to one of the senators that was part of that package. So how does the loan work? So the loan is forgivable, meaning it doesn't have to be paid back during what they call a covered period. The period is 8 weeks, and those 8 weeks will be chosen and determined by the business owner and that lending agency. So if that lending agency is a bank, a credit union, or whoever that is, the two of you will decide on what 8 weeks those are, and that determination will be made between you and that lending agency. And so between February 15th, 2020 and June 30, 2020, those 8 weeks are what they're talking about, somewhere in there, and you can choose wherever that is. The total amount of this, of the forgivable loan, which is more, it's going to be a grant, because what happens is, so they're saying it's 2.5 times the business monthly operating costs, and the maximum amount to any single business is 10 million. Okay. All the operating costs, including employee payroll, other forms of compensation, employee health care, mortgage, rent, utilities, debt payments are included. The quarterly payroll cost for an employee cannot be more than $33,000, a little bit over that. Okay. The equivalent of an annual salary of $100,000 is what they're actually looking at. So if a small business had to lay off employees during the covered period, the forgivable amount of the loan will also be reduced proportionately. So if you have the 8 weeks and you've decided what they are, but during that 8 weeks you had to lay off anyone, they will look at it, is it 25%, is it 50% that you laid off, 75%? And what they would do is they would appropriate that loan, for that amount. So if they would take 25% away or 50% away. But if you actually kept them hired all 8 weeks, then the whole loan would be forgiven. So it's kind of catchy conversation, and I had to read it 4 times before I really got it. So what they're saying, for example, again, if it's a small business and they cut back half of their workforce, the amount of the loan would be reduced 50%, okay? If an employee's salaries were reduced by more than 25%, the loan will be reduced proportionately. But if all employees are rehired and their full salaries restored by June 30th, no reduction of the loan will occur. So this is something that we need to remember. So when you're choosing that 8 weeks, make sure that you understand all these bits and pieces so that you have them all down. And I'm sure this is being recorded, so we'll be able to put this out again. I think it's being recorded, right, Jim?
It is being recorded. Plus, with this, remember, we're on the first
Right.
work day since this legislation came out. So I'm sure we'll have more answers.
Right.
But it's important that everybody knows this resource is available. And I don't know, Mike, have you heard anything more on this yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. So thanks, BC. You had some other information for us.
So if the crisis continues longer than what is expected, the law may be amended so that the time period is extended. So the 8-week period was determined in discussion with a bunch of business leaders, and they came up with that, which makes it kind of a good sense. What they're also saying is to expedite the loan process. Personal guarantees have been waived. All that is required is a good faith certification that your business has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and that the funds will be used according to the guidelines that they've stated in the loan. So the best guess is that by 2 weeks, maybe it will be up and running. And from what we're hearing from the senator who was part of that package, and that there additional resources have been assembled for small business. And there's something called the Small Business Investor Alliance. I didn't have a chance to get that link before, but I can send it out to everybody on this call. And so that's something they had some additional information. Also, the Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, they've also put together a list of frequently asked questions that they've answered, and I'll get that to you guys as well. Okay, so as far as that stimulus package for small businesses, that's the information we have right now. And a lot of that is going to stay permanent. However, some of that would change, as Jim stated. This is changing every day. So just be aware of that. That's all I have, Jim.
Okay, super. Are there any other questions that folks have of Mike, BC, myself? And remember, there's a lot of good resources coming available over the next few weeks too. So, you know, as soon as we know something, we'll make sure we get that information out to you. We've got Mike on our board, so as soon as he knows more from his colleagues, he'll get that information to us as well.
And I think, Jim, there were some questions about the Department of Labor. Our next, there's a webinar on April 1st. The head of the Department of Labor will be on that webinar. And Jim, it's 11:30 to 12:15, correct?
12:15-ish, yep.
Okay, and so I think, I know I've sent it out, and I think NEF have sent it out. So we kind of sent it out several places, and it's on the website and on our Facebook page. So you can go there and get those webinars signed up for those webinars.
Justin, I see you're asking where do you apply for the SBA? It's through the SBA. We are still learning.
He's talking about the stimulus, Jim. He's saying, where do you apply for the stimulus? It's not, you can't yet.
Yeah.
They haven't identified all the lenders. And so once they do that, there'll be more information that will come out about it. And you'll see it. It'll probably be in a couple of weeks, as they stated.
Yeah. So, and the banker I talked to today, Justin, they were an Iowa banker, so I know I can feel like I can give the information without jeopardizing anybody. They're still sorting through how that's going to work for them. They're worried about, they have to make sure they have the right technology in place, and how do they serve all of their clients. So if you already have a banker you're comfortable with, I would say that would be the first place to start. If they're not giving you the service that you deserve, then find another banker. If you are having trouble finding a banker, talk to either BC or myself or Michael, or any of us have several bankers that we're more than happy to make warm handoffs to. So we'd be more than happy to. And then somebody asked if this is being recorded. This is being recorded, and I'm sure I'll put Bree on the spot. She's our host at DoSpace. I'm sure DoSpace would also give us a forum in a week or time or so when we have better information to do this seminar again, or if we see the need to bring others, maybe Mike might be able to bring his colleague in and so forth. I feel like it's a moving target today.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And Friday we had some information, and then SBA told us, well, that information's already obsolete. So I apologize. It just feels like it. And
Very
so,
fluid right now. It's very fluid.
And Justin, do you just pick a lender? Ideally, if you know some banking representatives. If you don't, talk to BC or myself afterwards, and that way we can guide you to where we think are more friendly banks. Hate to say it, but some are a little more progressive and able to work with you. But if you know a banker, that's the best place to start, because they've already got a relationship with you and your business.
Right.
If it's unemployment issues, sorry, BC.
That's okay.
That you can start at the Department of Labor. I know that Heartland Workforce Solutions is working, but they have to have, obviously, they can only have about 7 people in their office at a time. But Heartland Workforce Solutions is another great resource on the unemployment side. They are helping people get unemployment claims filed, and they're keeping up with everything day to day. BC, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, I was just going to say, yeah, I will, Candace, I will send out that information. I just didn't have enough time to get everything together, but I'll send those links out as well to those who are on this call. The other thing is, I know people are wondering, on the personal side, okay, what about my mortgage? What about my car payment? And in talking to some of the banks and talking to some of the credit unions, they're just looking at everything individually. So I would go into my bank, and if you, just talk with them and let them know if your business is not making money, it's pretty hard for you to pay anything. A lot of them are going to work out some kind of agreement with you. A couple of the banks that I talked to said that they would work it one individual by individual. They're not going to give a blanket thing of what they'll do, but they will work with you individually. So if you already bank at a particular bank, go to that bank, let them know your status. And because of everything that's going on, I believe you'll be able to they will work out an agreement with you. So just know that, and just keep looking for information. I did post out some stuff on the Department of Labor, some additional fact sheets that they had. Some people may have gotten those. It went out through MOWBC, Jim, so I can post those out on NetBiz as well. And but there's a lot of information, so be careful at all the information that's out there, because some of it you have to make sure it's coming from the right source. It'll say SBA. I was out today and I saw one that says SBA COVID, and then it went into a finance company. So it wasn't SBA at all. So just be careful and don't give your personal information to anything that you're not sure of. Check and make sure it's a credible source that you're sending your information to. But just check personally with your banks, and then just wait. We'll be putting as much information out as soon as we get it on the stimulus for a small business, and we'll keep searching, and they'll keep sending us stuff as well. So just keep in tune with the Facebook and our website. We'll try to post stuff there as we get it. And then, of course, we'll keep the information flowing.
And Mike, that's a point we didn't talk about today, but just the risk of phishing and scams and so forth. And I'm sure your firm has already seen several. So could you give us some advice there to not fall into that trap?
Yep. We actually received the firm did, some of our users received their first phishing scam, if you will, already this week. It's the same as always, but whenever there's a disaster, that's when the scammers tend to come out in full force. And so it's really important, and this is just in general, but it's now a heightened sense at COVID-19, is if someone's sending you an email, you should always be really hesitant from it. So make sure you always check the actual email address. And so, if you get an email from some name that looks familiar, make sure you click on the name, whether it's in your Hotmail or Gmail accounts or your Outlook. You can always usually scroll right above it, and it'll actually give you the true email address. So that's always the biggest sign. So sometimes you'll get an email, and it might even be, it might look like it's from Jim, for instance. It'll say Jim's name, and then you highlight it, and it'll say some random email address at a random site. And so that will be an indication that obviously it's fraudulent. In general, no one's going to be emailing you. IRS isn't going to be emailing you. SBA is not going to be emailing you. None of these programs are going to be actively looking for you. So make sure you always double check that and be extra diligent on emails. Usually it's going to be you contacting them, and then you will have a contact information, email address, email chain. You'll know who you're interacting with as opposed to that. And so that's just that's important now, especially in light of this, but that's always just general good business practice.
Super, Mike. Anybody have any questions about scamming? Let us know too. It's really sensitive now. And remember, never send your social security number or other sensitive over just an unsecure network or site. If you do it in a SBA site, make sure it's got the little security lock on top, things like that. Things that seem normal, but we're not living in normal times today. So just keep that in mind. It's a bad enough situation. We don't want to be scammed at the same time.
There's a question out there from Mike, Jim.
Oh, yeah, it's Mike.
Oh, yep, I see that. So the question is about business interruption insurance. So a lot of businesses have CGL policies and various other riders to their insurance program. So I don't know if it'll be applicable to your insurance, but it is worth looking at any insurance that you may have for your business to determine whether or not you may be certain insurance coverages may be available. I can't guarantee, I wouldn't guarantee, I don't know if there would be any availability for you or for your specific policy, but a lot of times policies will include business interruption coverage. So if something happens that you lose revenue for a certain amount of period, that you may have an insurance coverage up to a certain amount. Now, that can be a very complicated question, and it may not be applicable because of things such as force majeure clauses, which is just a fancy word saying it's something out of control. Natural disasters sometimes are excluded, or pandemics a lot of times are excluded. So those are questions that if you do have in a policy that does have something that may apply, you may either want to contact your broker, your insurance producer, whoever helped you write that policy. You can consult the website. You can file a claim, and they may reject it. And if you think it's wrongly rejected, you can always consult with an attorney who's able to read the insurance policies. It's a possibility. I don't want you to think that that's highly likely that you have that type of coverage, but it's something to look at and something to consider. But most likely, it's probably not applicable to most people in this situation.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right, Mike, because I know one other client of mine said that they had insurance and they told them that their business was protected. But when it came to this COVID-19, it wasn't anything in that wording so they weren't covered. And so then the person told them, you have to ask specifically for business interruption insurance to be a clause in your insurance. So all of that is something that we can all learn from going forward.
Yeah, great question. And thanks, Mike. That's a great response. Do we have any other questions at all that we can shoot at? And again, we'll keep information flowing. We'll find another time to do a session like this once things get a little more worked out. Today, it just feels, when we set this up, we thought, oh, this is great time because we have had some things, but then with the new stimulus bill on Friday, things became super fluid. What I'm hearing is there's going to be a week or two for the federal government to work through the system and be able to figure out what is available and how are we going to distribute that. So that's another important thing. It's not good news, but it's a reality that we just need to be ready to. It's not going to happen tomorrow, so it's good to get your packets in and get everything in so you're in line, so you're at the top of the line versus the bottom, but it may still take a few weeks. So it's really important to plan accordingly. And as stimulus checks and other things like that do come, just remember during a time like this, it's really important to manage cash flow and make that cash flow last as long as possible. Justin, I wish I could tell you exactly how we knew the um, how we could make sure that your application was good. That's one of the weaknesses in this. There's going to be some people that don't get accepted for the SBA economic injury disaster loan. And if we could tell you why we would, we'll definitely keep our ears open to make sure. Now, if you sent the information in by mail, hopefully they'll send a response. If you send it online, I would have thought they would have at least said that they received it, but maybe they didn't.
There is a website. I think someone was asking, how can they check to see if everything has been collected? I think the website that I had was a customer service website for the SBA. Now, I don't know if they're going to tell you that information specifically, but it was disaster customer service at sba.gov. So you can try that and see if you can get any information that, they may allow you to get some information there. The other thing is a phone number that I have. It's 800-659-2955, and that was to their customer service as well. And so you can, I doubt if they'll tell you if yours is correct or anything. I'm sure they probably just don't even know. But at least those are two other sources that you can try to get some information through. I was going to say, if there was anything that, if you did do yours electronically and there were any red asterisks on any of the questions, if you submitted it that way, it will be rejected. So, but doing the paper filing, you won't encounter that. So I guess you'll have to wait until it comes back. Or they said they would notify individuals if there's something needs to be changed. So we'll have to wait on them and just kind of go from there.
And BC, can you repeat the number that you just gave out?
Sure. Yes, it's 1-800-659-2955. And the email that they asked us to send stuff to was disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. And I'm not sure if anything is working right now because they're just overwhelmed with stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. If you do call those numbers, expect some wait times. They will answer, but I've heard even the agencies themselves admitting that it takes sometimes 2 or 3 hours to answer.
Yeah.
So be prepared for that. Right now we're not in a sprint, we're in a marathon. So it's not great news, but we just want to be realistic about where we stand. Okay. Mike, do you have?
Sorry, Jim, I didn't hear you there.
I just asked if you had any closing comments or any other information.
No, this is like you said, Jim, this is something that's constantly changing. NEF is a great resource for figuring out those questions. We're going to do continued webinars, and look at, again, just a lot of these. There's a lot of great websites out there that are trying to update this all the time. We're going to try to do that at the law firm with our website that I shared earlier. And if there's ever any questions, feel free to email Jim and BC or even me, and we'll try to get you some resources to help you out with your questions. There's also all kinds of questions as this develops more. You're going to have issues, potentially suppliers or vendors or clients, contract issues. Those are all those things we're going to work through. But right now, it's just to make sure, like you said, Jim, to keep your cash flow as positive as possible. And try to, really is to hunker down and survive, and hopefully in 30 days or 60 days or whenever this kind of passes and we're allowed to go back to work, we can all see some rebound growth, and hopefully it comes back fast. But we shouldn't plan on that. We should be really looking at 3 to 6 months of really being in hunkering down and being unable to do what we need to do to keep this economic development moving. So it's scary times, but there's a lot of good resources out there, and hopefully we can all help ease this as much as possible and survive long enough to bounce back and start our businesses again.
I think one good thing, Mike, that you were saying too, was to make sure you stay on top of things. I think as business owners, we need to be looking at, okay, what will happen when this does turn around? What things do I need to do now that could possibly help offset any negatives that I would have when we got ready to start back up? So I think right now people are being very creative. This is the time to think about doing that kind of stuff. How can I make my business better? So if this happens again, what things would I need to put in place? What's a contingency plan for making sure that I can stay afloat with my business? And so watching your cash flow and making sure that you have reserves is going to be really critical. And it is. So, because even though you may get that in 2 weeks or a month down the road, you still have to plan for what may happen. The economy is going to be sluggish for a minute. And so we just have to make sure that we can survive it.
Yep, and now is a good time to do everything that you wish you had time to do. So
Yes.
whether that's general business counseling, trying to just get all your paperwork and set up, get everything planned for when you come back. There's every business has 100 things. A small business owner has 100 things they wish they would have had time to do, but they're worried about making money and doing the services or the goods that they provide. Well, now's the time to do some of that stuff while you have nothing else to do with respect to your business as far as making money. You should try to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and everything ready to go for when this all ends, and then you're hopefully can make a lot of money quick.
And we do have two more questions somewhat related to that. I'm worried this month that expenses are on auto withdrawal and I don't have funds coming in. Biggest suggestion, call the auto loan, call the mortgage right away and talk to them, because I know a lot of banks, I've heard, they're working with their customers, but they're not necessarily they're not being proactive going to their customer. So if you call your customer or call your bank and say, here's the problem, try to work out with them a solution. So that's the first suggestion. Anybody that you have on auto withdrawal, call them if you don't have funds coming in and make arrangements. If we know that OPPD and MUD has said they won't shut things off, so worst case, take it off of auto for a while and call them. Make sure you call them though, so they know what happened.
Right.
And work there, because if you don't call them, they don't know what's going on. If you call them, then they can document. And somebody had a really good suggestion I heard. When you do talk to them, make sure that you follow up and ask them. Say you get a hold of Bill and Bill says, yep, we'll do this. Just ask Bill to send you an email confirming that conversation so that you have it in writing. Okay? And then what are our options to pay 1099 subcontractors? That's one thing we're trying to learn more about with the stimulus package. There is a clause for gig workers, 1099 workers,
Contractors, yes.
sole proprietors that has not been in the past, but it is in this bill. So there will be options there. We just can't tell you exactly what they are today, but there are things in the stimulus package that we've never seen before. So that will help protect some of our key relationships.
And Bridget had a question, I think that was on that as well. And I would just say at this time, when we have time, it's the time now to look at your strategic plan. When we come back up, how will I operate? We need to look at that right now, because I just don't expect this to go on forever, but when it does, how are you going to operate when that business comes up? So talk to those, if you have mentors and coaches, just try to find out and look at your business, because you're the owner. Look at it and see what things you can do, what things you might need to change going forward. A lot of the restaurants have did some different things where they weren't delivering. Now they're delivering. Where they were not sending out meals for a family. They're doing all of that now because you have to become creative about that business, whatever it is. Whether you're in consulting or whatever, you have to look at that business and decide what can it do from here on? What will it do and how will I operate? These are things we need to be thinking about right now. We need to be sitting down, looking strategically at if this happens again, what contingencies should I have in place? So we want to look at insurance. I need to have that insurance that Mike talked about earlier, for your business when it's something like this that occurs, and make sure that that writing is in that in your policy so that you're covered for something like this that comes up. I mean, looking at your bankers and finding out how can I, continue to make things better. What do I need to do? They have a lot of information. So use your resources. The banks have tons of information. They can help you with, even understanding your financials and what you should do. This is the time to really be getting that information from those individuals right now, because in a couple of weeks or a month or two, when things start going, you won't have time to go back and try to do this. So use this time wisely right now and get all the things that you need done and look at it and ask questions, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help because, we're all in this together. So it's not just you by yourself, it's a whole bunch of people. And if we come together and really just try to get that information out and help each other, we can get through this. It's going to take a concerted effort on everybody's part, but we all have to do our own.
Yep. And let's see, what if your business has been in ownership transition, now the sales drop significantly and the new owner will be stuck with these issues? Mike, do you have any suggestions there?
So I guess my question would be, did the business deal go through? Obviously, if it did not, then that could be a huge issue. It could be a big issue. There could create some unforeseen circumstances that will make the closing on that business deal difficult. Obviously, that's something that you need to take into consideration, or the buyer will take into consideration. That company, your business, whatever you're selling is not likely is worth much today as it was a month ago, but that's short term. So that's only a short term view of that. And so it depends on where you are on your contract status and whether or not that has actually closed on that deal. But certainly if it hasn't, they may want to back out of it, or they may want to delay it, or they may want to make sure that your business can recover from this. So it's a hard question to answer without knowing the specifics. But it's something, if you haven't already, that's something you might want to consult with a lawyer on to see where you are in that progress. But certainly you don't want to sell the company for cheaper just because COVID-19 happened. So make sure you think about it and consult with a lawyer when necessary, because that's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, and a lawyer and a CPA potentially on the valuation side. Oftentimes CPAs are able to give you great advice on valuation. Somebody's asking, where do we find out what banks are providing these loan options? I think the better question is, when will we know? And I think it's more of a when question than a what question. I think most of the banks in Omaha are probably looking at that options already today to see what they can do. So I think I'd follow up or just pay attention. It's probably more of a when option, and I think we'll start seeing banks in the next week to 2 weeks start to be offering that loan. So,
and I think they can just start checking with their own bank that they bank with right now. Just start asking them, because they would probably be in the pipeline as well, to get that, to be a lender to do that.
Then we have the flip side, Mike. What resource will be available if the converse happens and deals in progress tend to increase or seemingly price gouge?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I don't see that question here.
I don't either.
It's in the Q&A down below.
Oh, there we go.
What resource will be available if the converse happens and deals in progress tend to increase or seemingly price gouge?
Well, again, it depends on where you are on your negotiations. So as far as price gouging, if it's price gouging is illegal in certain circumstances when it comes to products, right? We've all heard the stories about the people trying to buy all the hand sanitizer and sell it.
Yeah.
if that's what's really happening, then there's, for those types of things, those can be handled. If you're talking about just in a general business transaction, buying a business, again, that's something you're going to need to consult with a lawyer. If you have a deal and that deal happened and now you're in a better position and you have a contract and the contract says you're buying something for X dollars, most likely the COVID-19 shouldn't change that. And so those contracts are enforceable. So, it goes both ways, just like your suppliers and your vendors can be demanding money for you. You can still be demanding money under contracts for your clients or for people who are purchasing things from you. So, but what's good for, the goose is good for the gander. So you want to make sure you want to be reasonable with your clients. This is going to end in 3 months, but if clients owe you money, you can still collect on it just like everything else. There's no stop on that necessarily. There might be some provisions in your contract that are specifically covered this, most likely not. So yes, if you have an opportunity to collect money or you're owed money, that's a business decision, but then there's also the legal decision of trying to enforce that as well. And business needs to go on as necessary. So I don't know specific situations, but that's something you can certainly do. It's part business decision, part legal decision. You need to enforce your contracts. You need to make sure that you have revenue coming in, but at the same time, we all need to be reasonable in this. And for instance, I know our law firm, we have clients doing the same thing. You want to work with everyone because, if you're the bad guy now, in 3 months, people aren't going to forget that. But at the same time, you need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your business and make sure that you're not being taken advantage of, and make sure that, everything is fair and equitable to whatever that means. I hope that answered the question. I don't know if it did or not, but.
I think that was good.
Yeah, and an important thing, remember, get it in writing. In very worst case, and I do not recommend this, but if you can't get somebody to do it in writing, at least take extemporaneous notes. So write down date, time, and exactly what the conversation was. It is not nearly as effective legally, but at least a lawyer can say, look, so-and-so took notes, and here's this particular day, they took copious notes of every conversation they had. It becomes at least something that's closer to being acceptable. Correct, Mike?
Correct. Yeah, honestly, if you're offering services and goods that take time, you're producing something or you're offering a service, everything should be in writing anyways. And so to the extent that you're doing business and you do not have written contracts, there are available resources online for written contracts. You can also consult with a lawyer. We do these types of business counseling all the time, and you create a standard contract that you have that you ask or you require every one of your clients to sign. That's just good business practice, and it protects you in situations like this. So if you have an oral agreement that happened before coronavirus went crazy, and now they're backing out of that, that's going to be much harder to enforce without that signed agreement. And so let that be a lesson learned that going forward, you always want to memorialize it. Emails can work too. But really, at the end of the day, you want at least a one-page document saying, I agree to do this for you. You agree to pay me this much on these dates, and have it be signed at a minimum. And that's something that you can craft on your own. That's not necessarily recommended. You should always consult with a lawyer. But you can also consult with a lawyer, and we can create forms for you that you can use repeatedly, time and time again. And then you can always kind of consult with that lawyer to make them better in the future.
Super. And then I have in the Q&A, are both SBN Fed loans able to be forgiven? The emergency injury disaster loan may not be forgiven. There's certain aspects that might be looked at, but expect that one will not be forgiven. Expect the other one has a provision to be forgiven, but you still have the obligation to keep people employed. So keep that in mind. So treat them both as obligations, and if you meet those obligations, the payroll protection one does have a forgiveness aspect, but the economic injury disaster loan is probably not going to be forgiven. It will be potentially be spread out though across 30 years, So your payments and your monthly expenses shouldn't go up very much, but be aware there is a difference. Make sure, and the great thing with the SBA, it's all free to file, it's all free to apply. You have the right to choose to accept whether their terms work for you. So you could say, I don't want 50, but I do need 25. So you can choose to take only part of the money, or you can choose the conditions that they offer, and if they don't work for you, don't take the loan just because it's there.
Good
but
point,
if it works for you, take it, or take the part that you need, and tell the SBA, thanks, but I don't need the whole amount. I need this much.
But then, and they can also go back if later on, if they decide that they did want that other portion, they can get that without any questions asked. So it'll still be available.
Right. So apply. The worst they can do is say, or maybe yes, maybe no, but you still, if you're approved, you have the right to choose what portion and how much you want. And nobody's forcing you to take it. The SBA wants a resource available to you, and if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. There might be other resources that work as well or better. Okay, if there's no other questions, I just want to thank Mike for joining us. Remember, again, Mike's with Lamson, Dugan & Murray law firm, and we're proud to have him on our board. BC Clark is our director of training and client development. Proud to have her on our staff. And thanks so much to DoSpace. Bree is in the background there somewhere. Whenever
awesome.
we do training, she keeps us out of so much trouble. We really appreciate all that DoSpace and Bree does. We will have 2 more sessions next Monday and the week after with DoSpace for sure. Those will focus on moving to more of a digital platform. Check out DoSpace's website. And then, like we mentioned, we have a training with the Department of Labor lawyer on Wednesday, with Jacob Milosh of ARC Financial on Friday, and Core Bank next Monday at 11:30 to 12:15. All of these are free. All of these are intended to provide you with real life situations and real life answers that you can put to work. So thank you again for joining us. I appreciate all of you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Jim.